welcome to Reflection Tuesday for August 4th, 2020. Today's gospel in Matthew is well known. This is the one where Jesus tells the disciples to get in the boat. Now Matthew says he made them get in the boat and head out, and he would catch up with them later. I wonder if Jesus knew there was going to be a storm. Anyway, so the disciples got in the boat and they rowed maybe 3 miles against the wind in a storm. Now, keep in mind, he sent them on their way in the evening, maybe about 6 p.m., and now it was the 4th watch of the night, which means somewhere between 3 and 6 a.m. That means they had been rowing about 9 hours in a storm against the waves. They were exhausted. And as the storm surged, Jesus came to them walking on the water. And they thought he was a ghost. To say they were afraid is an understatement. They were terrified. They thought they were going to die. Now, the disciples lived with Jesus. They knew him personally. They knew the lines in his face. They knew what his hands looked like. They knew what his clothes looked like. They could easily pick out his voice in a dark room. But at this traumatic moment, they didn't recognize him. I mean, how is that possible? The answer is amazingly simple. They weren't looking for him. In the wind, the rain, the waves, the storm, the thought of Jesus being close, of being part of what they were experiencing right at that moment, didn't even cross their minds because they were scared to death. And that's where the problem lies, for them and for us. Had they been waiting in faith for him, they would have recognized him, but they were scared to death. Somehow, faith and fear don't fit together too well. They don't agree with each other. It's like putting ketchup on your oatmeal. It just doesn't work. Fear and faith cannot live together in the same heart because fear, again and again, has the ability to blind our eyes to the presence of God. When we're afraid and we're not quite sure about things, we sometimes do what Peter did when he saw Jesus in this gospel. You know, he could have said a lot of things like, Jesus, what the heck are you doing out there? Or Jesus, are you nuts? Get in the boat. But when Jesus said, take courage, it is I, Peter responded with, oh yeah? Fat chance. If it's you, tell me to come out there to you. If you've been watching the Chosen series, you know that Peter would absolutely say that. So not only does he not recognize Jesus, even when Jesus identifies himself, what does Peter do? Puts him to the test. If you are who you say you are, tell me to come out there. But he's scared, really scared. And that's why he doubted, because he's scared. And aren't we sometimes just like Peter when things hit the fan? The storms in our life hit and hit hard, and we don't realize or recognize that Jesus comes to us in the storms as well as the calm and peaceful times. But the storms of our lives sometimes make us afraid. When that happens, sometimes our fear overruns our faith, and we begin to doubt. And we say things to God like, where were you when my parents died? Where were you when I lost my house? Where were you when I was in such physical pain that all I could do is sit in my chair and cry? Where were you when I lost my job? Where were you when I had that accident? Where were you when I was attacked? Where were you when I had cancer? Where were you when I lost my husband? Where were you when I lost my wife? Where were you when I lost my baby? Where were you when my daughter died? Where were you when my son died? And God answers, the same place I was when my son died. I was there the whole time. I'll always be there. I'll never leave you. Don't be afraid. Faith does not require us to walk on water. Only God can do that. And Jesus did that not to perform a miracle, not to show off, not to say, hey, look, I'm walking on water. Jesus walked on water to prove one thing to the disciples, that there's no wind, no life storm, no force he can't conquer. And they finally respond with, truly, you are the Son of God. Faith is not walking on water. Faith for us is when, in the midst of our storms, coronavirus, politics, protests, riots, financial problems, sickness, disease, pain, the loss of loved ones, in the midst of our life storms, we know and believe that Jesus is in the boat with us, saying, take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid. God bless. Stay safe. See you next week.